Welcome to the Adaptation Planning and Practices online training brought to you by the USDA Northern Forest Climate Hub and Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science. This is Step 3, Evaluating Management Objectives Given Projected Impacts and Vulnerabilities. As a reminder, this training guides participants through the Adaptation Workbook, a resource created by and supported by the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science and USDA Climate Hubs. The Adaptation Workbook is a process designed to help managers integrate climate change considerations into natural resource planning. Each step is designed for custom inputs that relies on your expert judgment and evaluation. When completed, the Adaptation Workbook can provide a clear plan and project record that reflects each project's unique goals and values. Throughout this training, we will introduce each step of the process and work through them together. Use this training to learn the process and to think critically about each step. Afterwards, we hope you'll feel empowered to use these same steps for future projects and to share them with colleagues to integrate into their work as well. This week, we're tackling Step 3, Evaluating Management Objectives Given Projected Impacts and Vulnerabilities. In this step, we will bring together the management goals and objectives you've identified in Step 1 and the climate impacts that you identified in Step 2 to think about how climate change will affect your management goals and objectives. In this step, you will weigh the challenges and opportunities that climate change presents and determine the feasibility of meeting your management objectives under current management or business as usual operations. In earlier steps, you defined management goals and objectives for your project area in Step 1, and then assessed climate change impacts and vulnerabilities for your site in Step 2. In this step, you will evaluate the ways in which climate change may make it easier or harder to achieve each management objective. You will also evaluate the feasibility of meeting these objectives under current management and consider whether they should be altered or refined to better account for anticipated changes in climate change. The key messages in this step are: what management challenges or opportunities might occur? Can current management meet management goals? Do goals need to change? For some folks, Step 3 can feel similar to Step 2, but they are distinctly different. Let's take a closer look at how these steps can work together. Step 2 is about how climate change affects the place where you are working. So how might predicted changes in climate and related impacts affect the area? How vulnerable is the site? Can the site cope with change? This step requires evaluation of site level characteristics like slope, aspect, tree canopy cover, understory composition, soil properties, hydrology, and overall health. In Step 3, we consider how those site level impacts affect our ability to achieve our goals and objectives, whether the impacts of a changing climate creates additional challenges, and if there are some climate-related opportunities as well. In essence, we're asking, can we do what we set out to do using current management options, given the climate changes and site vulnerability that we've understood in Step 2? In this step, you will identify climate-related challenges to meeting your management objectives. Listing ways in which climate change impacts and vulnerabilities may make it more difficult to achieve each objective that you've defined in Step 1. The aim here is to focus on concerns related to ecological or environmental challenges rather than the other considerations such as financial, social, etc., as there will be a place for these considerations later in this step. Let's look at a few examples drawn from past projects. Here you can see a list of objectives in the first column and climate-related challenges in the second column. I will focus on the objective on line 2, improve breeding habitat for forest interior birds. The challenge identified for the objective references projected declines in conifer species that will reduce a particularly important type of habitat within the forest. You can see that for each objective shown here, there is at least one corresponding challenge, but in reality, you will likely identify 2 to 3 challenges for each objective. Next, you will define climate-related opportunities to meeting your management goals by listing the ways in which climate change impacts and associated vulnerabilities may make it easier to achieve your objective or create new management or conservation opportunities. For example, increases in small and medium-scale disturbances may help increase structural complexity within a stand or landscape. Again, focus on concerns related to ecological or environmental issues. Let's return to the previous example with a new column describing opportunities. The second row related to improving breeding habitat for forest interior birds now has an opportunity listed. Climate-related disturbances such as storm damage can increase coarse woody material and structural diversity favored by interior birds. The next item is to consider how these challenges and opportunities that you've identified may affect the feasibility of meeting your objectives. Again, thinking about your current business as usual approach. Take note, for each objective, are there greater challenges than opportunities? Do the opportunities outweigh the risks? An objective may have high feasibility if the identified opportunities outweigh the challenges, and if existing management options are adequate to address the challenges. An objective may have moderate feasibility if the challenges are weighted heavier, but they can still be addressed by using existing management options, though they may require additional assistance, resources, or extra effort. Low feasibility objectives are those with substantial challenges that existing management options are not sufficient to overcome. As you think about feasibility, it can be helpful to rate feasibility differently over the short term versus the long term, or depending on the resource in question. Returning to our example in row 2, you can see now the feasibility ranking for our objective. Although the challenge is the declining conifer component, increases in structural components may create valuable opportunities, so the feasibility was rated high. If we look at another objective that was rated low feasibility, we see the objective is to provide sufficient protection and habitat for the eastern box turtle. And although there are opportunities to retain woody material on site, the challenges are serious. Drier conditions, fluctuating water levels, and reduced winter snowpack will drive hydrologic changes that cannot be addressed through current management options. If some of your management objectives have low feasibility, or if they no longer seem practical under climate change, such as managing for a species that is likely to experience a severe decline, you may reconsider your management objectives or your broader goals. Lastly, in this step, you can record those other considerations. This is where you can list social, financial, or other factors that may affect your decision to pursue your objectives. Common considerations include requirements under a broader plan or strategy, threatened, endangered, or otherwise conservation status species, cost of implementation or potential funding sources, and alignment with ongoing initiatives or partner organizations. Returning to our example on breeding bird habitat, under other considerations, we've identified that there is existing funding through forest management that can support the creation of coarse woody material. In the third example, we have an objective to increase tree canopy cover in under-resourced neighborhoods, which also have disproportionate challenges related to the urban heat island effect. Opportunities exist to identify resilient tree species for street tree placement, and other considerations include needing more time to build trust with the residents in those neighborhoods. So you can see there is a wide variety of other considerations, and you can use this place in the workbook to capture the relevant connections for your project. Climate change may make some goals and objectives more difficult to achieve in the future, and there may be situations in which they need to be altered or refined to better account for anticipated impacts. After completing step 3, you should have a much better idea about whether your objectives are feasible, given the current options that are available to you. You have also identified social, economic, or other considerations that may affect your decision to pursue certain objectives. So before completing step 3, check in with yourself and ask, are you going to continue with the goals and objectives you've identified? If any objectives are rated as low feasibility, or if they no longer seem relevant due to the impacts of a changing climate, then you may want to refine your objectives or your broader goals at this time and return to step 1. Use the information that you have gathered up to this point to create goals and objectives that are more likely to succeed, given the projected impacts from a changing climate. You don't need to redo step 2, but you should update your objectives in step 3 before moving on to step 4. If you have high or moderate feasibility of meeting your objectives, you can proceed to step 4 to explore adaptation actions. And that concludes description of step 3 of the Adaptation Workbook for the Adaptation Planning and Practices training. Please contact us for more information.